and welcome to another episode of the Vet Project podcast. This episode will be all about burnout and how we understand burnout as the Vet Project, working in neurodivergent circles in the veterinary industry. Helen, as is now our process, our usual way of doing things, do you want to explain to us a little bit more about what burnout is, what it looks like?
Yes. So there's lots of different definitions of burnout, but the one that really resonates with me is from Nick Petrie from his research about different degrees of burnout. And he
Nick
talks
Petrie,
about,
the Harvard researcher,
okay,
Harvard
thanks for
psychologist
that,
and researcher, just to fill in the gaps.
just to fill in the gaps. Um, so yeah, 3 degrees of burnout, and he talks about first degree burnout being like high stress, but you're still able to function, and you can cope with things like breaks and putting boundaries in place and those sort of things. Second degree burnout then is chronic stress, and your capacity starts to decline in that sort of bracket. You'd be really tired, your motivation starts to decline, and you basically feel like you're in survival mode. And then third degree burnout as like complete system shutdown, where you're exhausted, your mind body shut down, you might be in bed, not able to do the things that you would normally do and live a normal life. And I think importantly at this point, we should say if you do feel like any of these things affect you, then get some help. Contact your GP, call VetLife, or any of those people that are there to support us.
I think it's a disclaimer we're going to put in all our episodes or tack it onto the episodes we've already recorded. That we do talk about big stuff. And if any of this stuff affects you, there are resources out there. Unlike as we all believe it as ND folks, we tend to become very independent and think we have to solve all our own problems. It's very hard to find support, find people who understand, because it's hard to find brains just like ours. Part of the reason why we set up the vet projects in the first place, to be that resource for people to come and find that support. But yeah, absolutely. GP, Vet Life, the Samaritans, all of that support is out there. A phone call, an email, a text message, something away. Try to remove as many barriers to that help as possible. And we work very closely with the team at Life. They're all incredible human beings, and we absolutely support the work they do. And I think it's one of the reasons that they are having to work so hard at the moment, that they're having to dedicate so many of their resources to this kind of support, that burnout is becoming much more of a feature in the veterinary industry. And I don't know, do we do comments? Do we do chats? Do we do emails? How do people give us feedback? I'd love to understand the drivers, some of the drivers for that, some of the extra drivers for that, from people working in the industry. Why is burnout becoming so much more of a common theme? It almost seems we've kind of normalized, hyper normalized the idea that, oh yeah, I've got, this colleague's away on burnout for a few weeks, this colleague's just come back from a couple of months off, and they were physically and emotionally broken, and that's a completely fine and normal cycle. And, we all just covered for them until they got back on their feet, and maybe next month I'll take a little bit of burnout off. Not recognizing the seriousness of this. This is, I think most of us would associate the word burnout with that third degree version of it, right? The complete shutdown. I just
Yeah.
cannot carry on. I go to my doctor, emergency appointment in the morning. I go, look, I am absolutely wit's end. You've got to, sign me off. I'm not feeling great. And doctor orders you, normally gives you 2 weeks off, 2 weeks of rest, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later, isn't always the cure that we expect it to be, but at least it takes you out of the situation where there are the most demands on your nervous system. But it's interesting that it has become such a normalized thing. Why do you think that is, Helen?
There's several reasons, isn't there? I think we're trying to juggle more than we ever were. I think the expectations on us are incredibly high. Speaking as a mom and somebody that's been in work and trying to juggle all of those things as well. Um, I think we have very, very high expectations of ourselves. I think we're not very good at resting. I'm not sure we know how to rest a lot of the time. I think we should do another podcast on that. But
Yeah.
certainly,
Is that a specific neurodivergent thing, or is that people in general?
I think probably people in general. I think we do have very high expectations of us. I think workplaces have very high expectations of what we can manage as well. We do know that neurodivergence makes burnout more likely. There's different reasons why that's the case. We yeah, tend to find ourselves in that threat mode a lot, in that fight, flight, freeze kind of state, and that can burn through neurotransmitters and make us more likely to burn out.
I just
There's
want to catch
again, there's a
something you just said there about the demands in workplaces. So I think we've been through
mm,
this like big phase, the consultants are all coming in and we're all looking for workplace efficiencies. But most of it's based around you being at the same level of uh, capability every single day. Now, especially if
mm,
you're neurodivergent, you can be a bit up and down. Some days are easier than others. If you've got chronic health conditions, any of these things that are tied into this space that we work in. But even if you're not, even if you've got menstrual cycles, you've got, mood shifts, you've got mood swings, you've got um, events that just happen in life. The kids start school, that's a big day. That's going to cost you more. You're going to have less resource than for school, just little things like that. But in our workplaces, they're designed for you to be absolutely consistent. You walk in 9 a.m. or whatever time you start, and you're expected to be at the same working level as you were yesterday, last week, last month. In fact,
mm,
be getting better every day, always looking for you to improve every single day. And I think that constant pressure to be at your best, to be giving your best, to be giving your all, whatever the sort of uh, toxic motivational slogan that your company has decided to adopt tells you need to do. Always offer your best. Well, great, but I'm not at my best every day. Perhaps my best on a Wednesday is my 30% of what I've got. But if that 30% is all I've got that day, that's my 100% for that day. But there's no room in my KPIs, in my sort of
mm,
efficiency management system for me to be able to adjust to that. So I'm still expected. The demands are still at the same rates. You can see even before you start factoring in neurodiversity, that those demands are this systemically going to lead to more opportunity for this kind of nervous system overwhelm, this too much demand, this using up my capacity, or rather, the expectation that any employee's capacity is infinite. We keep going at the same energy level every day without using
yeah, and I
room for making room to fill it up.
yeah, you're right. I think we are expected to be operate at the same level every day, and I think the other thing that we expect um, wrongly, I think, of employees or team members is that everybody operates at the same level. Everybody has the same strengths. Everybody is the same, can do everything. Um,
You mean everyone's
and
measured against the same metric?
sort
It's kind of
of,
like
sort
the fish, the elephant, the monkey, and the test is to climb the tree.
so, so yeah, sort of. But I think if you're a vet, you're often expected to do surgery and consult and whatever else it is, do your admin work and have the same capacity to do those things as the next person. And it's just not the case. It's just not the case.
So just to dig into that, so as a neurodivergent person, you are expected to have the same capacity as your colleagues, but there's so much more invisible effort goes on to help regulate a nervous system that might be more prone to going up and down. It's I think of it in computer processing language. There's too much stuff going on in the background. You get the spinning wheel of death a lot more often just because you're managing so many apps that are draining your energy in the background or taking your resource. But of course, in those moments where you've got the spinning wheel of death, someone's there clicking away, going, come on, do the thing, copy and paste or whatever it's trying to get you to do. So the demands never stop. So you never have that like buffer time to catch up. Your spinning wheel of death is still going along, and you're like, oh, okay, I've got to get to the next thing and the next thing. Um, if we're lucky, we catch up all at once and find that energy from somewhere to manage it all. But most of the time, I think that's what leads to burnout so much more often in neurodivergent people is that either uh, we've got all of these apps running, simultaneously. I've got to do the communication over here. I've got to manage my sensory difficulties here. That's the more sort of the towards the autistic, dyslexic traits where it just is harder for you to do a lot of the tasks that you're expected to do if adjustments aren't in place. If we're assuming an equal environment. And then you got the other side of it. So more for the ADHD folks, the dopamine side. So you use up your dopamine. ADHD brains tend to work in sprints, in spikes. So do loads and loads of work, but then we have to have the crash. And I think this is partly related to that. That the toxic productivity is rewarded. So you are rewarded for high performance, extreme high performance, really rewarded in most places. Either, you've done a good job, or you're giving you a bonus, or you've sold the most surgeries, whatever it is that day. Uh, and so we lean into that. Now, if you're a neurodivergent person, if you're an ADHD person, sometimes we can get hooked on the idea, and this is what I've seen in some of my clients, that I need to operate at that very, very highest level that is so energy, cognitive load, costly, and I will not be satisfied with anything less than that. So I'm constantly pushing myself with shame, with toxic drive, all of those things to be at that high level every single minute, of every single day, and it's universal through high performance coaching, high performance talk that that's not sustainable. At some stage, you have to recover. Just on a purely chemical energy basis, you've got to replenish those chemicals, give your brain time to build up new resources to then have your next sprint. Again, uh, the way of working is expected to be consistent. So if you set your level really high and the system is set up for you to be consistent, every time you drop below that, there are measures, markers, people who are going to spot that you're not at your very, very highest unsustainable level. Um, so I think that's, another reason why we're driven to these burnout states just by trying to achieve what we know to be possible. But on the good day when the wind's in the right direction, we've slept the exact right amount of minutes and I've eaten the right amount of food and I've had just the right amount of sips of coffee. And sort of setting our expectations by those good days. And I think one of the things we do in coaching is go, okay, well, let's make a plan for the bad days. Let's make a plan for the everydays
Mm.
rather than only planning for my best days and building
Yeah,
everything
yeah,
around that energy level, that engagement level.
yeah. We do that a lot, don't we? We tend to only plan for our best days, and then what happens when it doesn't happen? What happens when we don't have our best day? That's often where the shame comes in and the guilt and all of those sort of things. I think as well, it's important to think about because we're talking a little bit, aren't we, here about neurodivergent people and neurotypical people in the same sentence and burnout affecting both types of people. Um, so the other thing that we've got to remember is from a legal point of view, neurodivergence is a disability. There's things that disable us in the workplace and in the rest of life. Um, and I think it's important to differentiate that because it affects how we interact with the world. It affects how burnout affects us. It's important, I think, to just to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. And it's the masking those disabling factors or features, or
Yeah.
some days we can do stuff and some days we can't. And that's one of the disabling traits, the inconsistency of the executive function. So often when we have those days when it's harder for us, because we've had days when it's been fine, everyone around us is going, well, what's wrong with you? You could do it yesterday. Of course you can do it. Well, actually, today I can't because my brain isn't working with me or my nervous system isn't working with me. And I think that's really important to recognize as well, is especially tying it into burnout. A lot of our executive function stuff, a lot of our shutdowns or overwhelm come from a nervous system reaction. So for me, that third degree burnout is when we've been burning so hot, we've been using up so much of our resource that we run out. And then the brain's been going, okay, well, here, have some more like stress energy, and we use that all up, and then there's nothing left. And so the nervous system goes, well, I've got nothing left. The only thing I can think to do to stop you, put me in this, what I perceive as a dangerous situation, is to shut you down. And I think that's one of the things to measure when you think you might be going into this burnout state, when we start going into overwhelm, when we've used up all our resources, basically, um, any demand on us, demand from a partner, demand from a colleague, a boss, a friend, do you want to go out for lunch? And if it feels massive, it feels like a huge drain. It's your body interpreting it as a threat. So I've used up all of my resources, and any other demand then is, oh, this is a threat, this is danger. I might be in danger
Mm.
here either because I'm depleted or because I need to rest or whatever it is. And so if you start noticing that when people ask you for simple demands, can you pick up some loo roll on the way home, and it feels like a big like oh goodness, not another thing, and you're probably halfway on your way, because it's the nervous system trying to protect you from from this burnout state, from being completely depleted, whatever that might look like for you.
I mean, I'm always going to freak out at
Um,
that. I hate the supermarket, so you know, that's all, that always. I never want to get Liver on the way home from work. But another thing that Petrie found in his research was um, thinking about how what solutions that organisations are offering for burnout. So if you're in third degree burnout, for example, is a week or two off going to help you? That might be a second degree burnout solution or a first degree burnout solution, and that's where the degrees I think are quite helpful because there's different solutions for different degrees. So first degree burnout, you know, you're a bit stressed, but if you put some boundaries in place, if you have a holiday, if you do some exercise, you know, those kind of things are going to help take you out of burnout. Um, Whereas if you're in second degree burnout, the changes need to be more significant. So, how do I say no to this? How do I reduce the demands on myself? How do I change my work habits and all of those sorts of things? Whereas in third degree burnout, it's much more kind of the changes need to be much bigger. So, actually, does something about my life structure need to change? Is it a really fundamental change that I need to make? You know, and at that point, it's not a few days off, is it? Getting signed off for a few days. It's, you know, absolutely might be the right thing to do because it gives you some breathing space and it gives you a chance to get help. But is it going to fix the problem and take you back to 0 degrees burnout? Probably not.
I mean, honestly, I'm a big believer that the solutions for number three should be the super solutions for them. So often clients when they come for burnout coaching, the question is, how do I get back to how I was before? I have to break hearts and say, well, that's not what I'm going to help you with. We go back to how it was before, guess where you're going to end up? You know,
Yeah,
6 months down
yeah.
the line, 6 weeks down, next week, you can end up in exactly the same place. So for me, if we're looking at situations, systems, you know, lifestyles where we're ending up in burnout or we're feeling like we're moving towards it, something's got to change. So for neurodivergent people, it's like, okay, well, what's draining us here? What's costing us? What's pushing us past our resource, and how can we get rid of that stuff? And it's interesting you're talking about getting some time off, having a bit of a rest. That's the go-to. Doctor will sign you off. Don't need to go into work. But for some of us, that's actually not going to help at all.
Yeah, it's never worked for me
Either
that.
either because it's a nervous system issue, and so people can have like 6 months off, resting, but never resetting the nervous system. So still every time they go back, fall into that burnout pattern, or because rest means a different thing for you. So if you, it's
Mm.
one of the valuable things as a neurodivergent person to work out what is rest and recovery for me. What does it look like? And it can look totally be like climbing up a mountain, uh, going swimming in a lake somewhere, or reading a book, or it can mean sitting in front of Netflix under a duvet, which is one of my go-tos, I have to say. That and go for a walk in the forest. Um, and so it can look completely different. Is it meeting people? Is it not meeting people? So that looking at that time, not as I need to rest because that's what people tell me to do. It's how am I going to reset my nervous system? How am I going to regulate in a way that makes me feel calm, safe, secure, not like I'm under threat the whole time. Yeah, so I think it's a really important process. Again, we go through this in coaching quite a lot. How do you work out what it is that's actually resetting you versus either I'm disconnecting, cutting out for a bit, and I'm going to come back in exactly the same state as I was before, but maybe my internal nervous system's dropped a little bit enough for me to be able to process through it or crack on. But that's not the same as, okay, how do I rest, reset, shift it back to a place where I can really change things and do some really lasting stuff that helps.
It's a real self-discovery piece, that, isn't it? I just did not know for years how to rest at all. I didn't have that self-knowledge at all. Like I remember going on holiday and I just couldn't chill out. I couldn't relax and Googling like
Yeah.
how do I switch off? Like how I don't know what to do here. Like how do I relax? I don't know. Um and so it's
Do you know
taken a long
now? You're better
time.
at it.
Yeah, I do. Shockingly. No, not shockingly. Yeah, yeah,
What helps you
I do
relax?
know.
What helps you relax now? What's your version of that? If you go on holiday, what's your way to chill out?
Um, it's I think what it isn't is loads of screen time. I think that's what tends to keep my brain switched on. So lots of scrolling, which is a very, very easy go-to. Um, but it's active rest a lot of the time. So getting out for a walk, having a plan is a big one for me. If I have a plan, if I have the days planned out, then I don't have to. It reduces the mental load, and I find that really restful. Um, so yeah, getting outside, going for a run, getting some exercise. And then in the evenings, just things like colouring. I've got a one colour colouring book. So I tried normal colouring with different colours, and that was too much. So then I had to select which colour I needed at which time, and I would just no, no. So the one colour, one felt tip, black
Very
felt tip,
popular.
black and white
You've got the
colouring.
one color
I
coloring
love
in.
it. Yeah, I love
Reminds,
it.
it reminds me when you were a kid and
Um,
you used to get those things that you would scrape off. You like scratch the
yeah.
lines to get the shiny picture through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's anything like that. Anything to kind of, I know some people do knitting, some people do crochet and all that sort of thing, don't they? To kind of sort of keep your brain ticking over, um, doing something productive and useful. So yeah, and sleep. Actually, getting enough sleep is really, really important to me. Um, not not sleeping in loads in the morning because that doesn't really do it for me. Even though
Hmm.
I do
Definitely.
find I do that very easily. Um, but having a kind of a consistent bedtime and wake up time is restful.
And it's interesting that how important, just going back to the burnout, how important sleep is in that in that phase. So uh, just all the things that you're talking about there, a lot of them are processing things. So I like doing lots of
Hmm.
walking because I'm a connected processor and my brain can think through stuff, file it away, sort it all out. There's a buildup of stuff. I need to just, okay, I'm going to go for lots of long walks. Brain will sort it out, put me on top of a mountain. Brilliant. Uh, and sleep is also part of that process. That processing, that sort of filing system. This happened, that happened, this is how I responded, this is all good, and going into that deep level of sleep to be able to sort of filter through the brain, basically. It's one of the processes that happens in that deep level of sleep. And if we're not getting it, let's say, for instance, we've been using stress or punishment as motivation to be able to do stuff when we've run out of um, neurotransmitters, the right kind of neurotransmitters that will give us reward, then we get stuck in stress. We're coming back to stress. Everything's all around stress. And we're really trying to push ourselves through. And we don't get that kind of sleep because even in the night, we're going, oh, there's lots to do. There's so much to do. So many demands on me. And there's threats everywhere if we're into seeing demands as threats. And so we're not even in the night processing it. And that's when we very quickly snowball from stress into the burnout phase, where we've not managed to process, we've still got a backlog, still can't deal with the backlog. So emotionally and cognitively, there's just so much going on, brain can't deal with it. So it goes, right, I'm going to power down for a bit. And your body's going to follow you. And just something that's interesting as we're talking here, because obviously we talk on sort of um, research levels and we talk about the three stages, but I'm big on feelings. So, uh, if we're comfortable, can we talk about the feelings of the different stages? What might it feel like?
Yeah, so from a personal level for me, I think the first degree just feels like being a bit stressed. That's certainly what Petri describes, just a kind of recoverable situation of being a bit stressed. Um, Whereas second degree, it's that kind of real motivation loss. So that, from me, from my point of view, I do think I spent quite a number of years in this second degree burnout,
Mm.
um, where it's very difficult. And that's the other thing about that self-care stuff that you were just talking about. I think it's when you've got very low motivation, I think it's very difficult to do that self-care. So
Yeah,
it's difficult to dig
100%.
you out of
Yeah.
that hole.
It's funny,
So that,
even as someone who coaches it, created these menus of people, created these lists,
yeah.
and still, I think it was before Christmas. We just had a really busy autumn. We did loads of speaking, and every day, lots of coaching. I loved it. It was really, really great, but it exhausted me. And so we got to that
Mm,
Christmas stage, and I think we were trying to go, okay, well, how do we take the business forward? And it was all kind of decision making stuff. What do we want to
mm,
focus on next year? What groups, how do we target our people, reach more people, and I just couldn't engage with it. So for
mm,
me, that was my version of a burnout phase was I just couldn't get my brain to think or do anything. And all I wanted to do was sit on the couch and play on my phone, which is basically what I did, even though I know that that's one of the worst things for me. It doesn't do anything for it.
Mm.
5 minutes, set the limit to reset in the day. Okay, great. But as a sort of long-term solution, when you're feeling that complete, for me, it's like the heavy feeling. Everything is
Mm.
heavy. How do I walk across this room? I've got to make a cup of tea. Oh, it feels so massive. I'm just not going to bother. I need to go to the loo.
Yeah.
I just can't. I'll do it tomorrow. You know, um,
Oh, yeah,
it's
absolutely. It is. It's that magnitude of things, isn't it? Like, and the trouble the
exactly.
trouble was at that time that we both felt like that. So it wasn't a very good
We've
combination.
both been busy,
Um,
I
yeah.
think you're probably better at ignoring the discomfort of it than me. I'm like, no, must listen to the body. I must have the rest, even though there's no time and space for it. Um, but I think you hit on the point there, isn't it? That when you're in that low motivation race, like going outside felt like a massive thing. I'd have to
Yeah.
like put shoes on, I'd pick which coat to wear, you know, even though
Yeah.
going for a walk
Yeah.
around the block, I'd have felt great. And so when you're in those burnout states, getting out of them is so hard, and that's why we end up at a point where, you ring up the coach for an intro call, and you turn up, and the coach says to you, "Let's go to the doctor right now in the next 5 minutes." Set up your appointment, or you end up at the doctor because there's not been enough left after pushing yourself so hard, after your body's gone, there's nothing to then go on that process. And so sometimes it needs that interruption, that crisis point to go, okay, wow, I need to do something about this.
Yeah, and I think one of those things that we talk about in coaching a lot, or what we do in coaching a lot, is a kind of supportive accountability, isn't it? Where, let's drill down into what a person needs at that point. And for me, it's probably getting out for a run or something like that. Right,
Mm.
okay, let me know that that's what you've done. Like, send me an email and tell me that you've done that to provide
Oh, let's
some
let's dig deeper in
accountability.
there, Helen. This is good stuff. This is gold here. So it's like anything. It's like the mechanisms of addiction, all of these kind of things. One of the best ways out, and one of the ways to soothe a unquiet nervous system is connection, is other people, is
Mm.
your close family, is your support. So actually, if you're trying to do it all on your own, when you're feeling like you might be headed into that burnout state, when you're not talking to people about it, when you're not reaching out for the coach, the therapist, the colleague, whatever it is, that's when you're going to get into big trouble because that connection, that connecting with other nervous systems, just simple conversations. Why COVID was so damaging for people because we lost those connection support networks. So we got stuck in cycles of thought. A lot of people got stuck in their cycles of thought. Um, so that connection is one of the quickest ways out of my nervous system is in a state of threat, danger. um, Talking to your partner, friends, family about it, and letting them just shoulder some of the burden or just say, I had a great one the other day. Uh, when we're in that, when we're receiving demands as a threat, we kind of lose perspective. I think I forget what it was, maybe a podcast I was listening to or something. And I'm talking about, went round to the friends to have a good old moan, took the kid with them. It's a little kid, so like 5 years old or something. I was like, yeah, my husband's leaving me, my work's rubbish, and the dog's sick, and making a big deal of it. And the kid just turns around and goes, well, that's just three things. Yeah, it's like there's so much. It's like, well, it's just three things. So getting that kind of childish perspective about, yeah, actually, it is just dog's sick, works, thing, and husband was leaving, a kind of big things, sure. But for the sake of this metaphor, it's about finding the perspective to go, okay, well, how much am I actually dealing with here, and how much is my brain perceiving it as, massive, massive stuff because I'm in that burnout state.
Yeah, we do tend to ruminate, don't we, as neurodivergent people? That's something that we do, and we can talk ourselves. We talk about brain spaghetti a lot, don't we? We can talk ourselves
Mm.
into these kind of really kind of well, for me anyway, it feels confused states where like I don't know what's going on. Interoception is tricky. Like I don't know half I don't know what's going on, and the kind of verbalizing that at somebody is just a really useful way to start to put it in some kind of order and start to untangle some of the brain spaghetti and then start to make a plan, in terms of, right, what is it that I need to do? That, if some of that motivation can come from externally, if you're not internally motivated enough at that time to manage, going out yourself, then that it can be really helpful that to kind of,
Mm.
you know, get
And you're
external help.
absolutely right that having to explain it to someone is the reason why, talking therapy, although there's lots of research to suggest it, doesn't work all of the time, but for a lot of people, really helpful.
Mm.
Um, because you have to take it from that bit of the brain where it's going round and round, the same old cycles. You get stuck in your own loops. If we could solve our own problems, what, therapists wouldn't exist. But we get stuck in our own thought spirals. And so to have to put it through language center motor function to make words come out your mouth, different part of the brain. So it takes all that spaghetti and forces it to go in a straight line to be able to tell someone, same as writing it down. Writing it out. That's why brain
Yeah.
dumps are so useful.
Mm.
It just forces it through different parts of the brain which structure it, and then you see it in an order, and it's not the old ADHD, all the words and thoughts all at the same time. You have to put them one after another, which then often
Mm.
leads to a solution. Um,
Yeah.
and so, or if you talk to someone, therapist, coach, whatever it is, they're able to go, oh, look at what you just said. What would be the solution for that? And ask the question around it that your brain can't see because it's so fixated on the problem, on the issue, on the feeling, or on the spiral that it's decided to keep going around.
Mm.
Um, and it's interesting because when I'm talking with clients, we talk about how we can go in and out of this burnout-y feeling more often. So I'm talking more sort of first, second degree burnout here, just because of how our brains work. We tend to work, if you're autistic, you go out, there's a lot of sensory inputs, a lot of stuff, a lot of cognitive load, dealing with so much more background stuff just to function. Then you come away and you crash. You come home and you hide under the duvet. ADHD, same thing. You burn really, really hot, but at some stage you've got to pay the price. And I think I describe it as a low energy state because so often these things get confused, especially clinically. Doctors they're looking at someone with low motivation, low mood, no energy, and ticks a lot of the boxes for depression, anxiety disorders, which are often connected to these conditions. Um, so one of the jobs for us is to distinguish, okay, am I in a low energy state where I've run out my dopamine, I've, been burning too hot for a while, or am I in depression, which is permanent chemical shift, and what's the help and support that I need? And I think far be it from us to suggest that people go on that journey on their own. That's where we need to go to the external help, the clinical support. Um, or start recognizing, have I been here before? Is this a state that I'm in regularly, and what's my way out of it? And one of the things we talk about in burnout coaching is to make friends with being in that low energy state. Rest and recovery is not punishment. Having to take time off shouldn't feel like you've done something wrong. It should be something that we look forward to, something that's actually quite nice and good for us, something that we enjoy. Shouldn't either have to fight for uh, or work to earn. I think it's one of the misnomers is that we feel like we need to work really hard, do all the things, and then, if we're lucky, we get the holiday. I think we see this cycle a lot that people work really, 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 really hard and then find themselves heading towards burnout. They go, okay, I'm going to book a holiday. They just push themselves until they can have this break that they booked to absolutely crash. We talked about what is rest and recovery. I think a lot of people, especially typical brains, would say, well, it's you know going by the pool and just sleeping for a week. Eating as much as I can, drinking, occasionally dipping my toes in, but mostly just absolutely crashing somewhere foreign where the sunshine, I get vitamin D. Just as a cycle of push yourself, crash, push yourself to near burnout, crash. So one of the journeys we tend to go on in coaching is okay, well, how can I be okay with having rest and recognizing that that is a necessity? It's not a luxury. It's not something that if I do good, I can have a sit down. No, it's an absolute, drink water, eat food, have rest. It's get sleep. It's part of the basic keep this machine working stuff.
I think that's very easy to say and very, very difficult to do in practice. I think
100%.
like I certainly my sort of personal experiences of this are kind of being on that treadmill, family, um, work treadmill, and just not knowing how to get off. Like how do you step off? I have genuinely no idea how to do this. And that's scary, isn't it? And you've talked a little bit around kind of clinical aspects of depression and things like that. And I think it's important to say as well that it doesn't really matter who you seek help from because we're trained to signpost to appropriate people. If you know you reach out, I think we sometimes, or certainly sometimes for me in the past, I've got worried about, oh, is it a coach I need? Is it a therapist I need? Do I need to go to the GP? And actually, it doesn't really matter because you will end up in the right place for you.
Mm. Yeah. And
Whoever you
it's
reach
interesting
out
you're
to,
saying
they'll,
about how do I step off the treadmill? How do I stop doing all these
yeah.
things? Well, I mean, the tough answer that I have to have given before is that if you live in a lifestyle where the expectations are that I can manage all these things and cope with them, and I clearly can't, something's got to give. So
Mm,
something in that, you can't step off the parent treadmill, you can't step off the, off the. I mean, I think in your case, you did step off the work treadmill. You realised that was not the kind of work that was going to fit with having, three neurodivergent kids and all the other stuff that you got going on, and were more excited at the idea of leaning into something that suits your values more. So that tends to be where we come to, we want to do all this stuff. There's social media telling us we should be perfect and amazing at all this stuff. We be the working mum, drops the kids off and they've all got packed lunches and, the amazing costumes on book day or whatever it is. And then you go into work and you're the CEO and and you meet your friends in the office and they come over and you high five over Gucci handbags. And it's just not reality. You know what I mean? Um, see your friends
definitely.
once every couple of months if you can schedule them in with with all the kids stuff and all that kind of stuff or whatever it is. So we have these expectations that are often set by out there, by the something, by the social media. And so we're expected to be able to be on that treadmill. And that's why it's so
Mm.
hard to step off it because to step off it says, well, I couldn't cope. I wasn't good enough, strong enough, fast enough. Even though those expectations are completely unrealistic. Um,
I don't. I mean, obviously, my stepping off of the treadmill was fairly dramatic, I think. But I don't think it's got to be like that. I don't think it has to be that dramatic. I think some of the stepping off the treadmill is kind of incremental changes of your expectations. So I remember when I first got my ADHD diagnosis, I read an article, I think it was in Attitude magazine, about how to keep a house when you've got ADHD. And one of the things that somebody suggested was to keep your clean clothes in the clean clothes basket and select your next day's clothes from the clean clothes basket. And that was revolutionary for me. That was a massive, massive change in expectations because I was like, oh yeah, actually that could work. I don't have to get everything out, fold everything, put everything. I mean, I would love to be able to do that, but it was a permission for stepping off that little bit of the treadmill, I think. Like actually what what does this look like in a way that I can manage?
so we're going back to the nervous system again, aren't we? So when you're on the treadmill, you feel like you can't get off it because there's that story that whatever it is, if I step off it, I've failed, I've done something wrong. And nervous system won't let you do that because failure means rejection from the tribe, all of that survival stuff that we talk
Mm,
about. Uh, So what you're talking about there is taking little steps. I just do the washing basket thing, and then kind of looking around and going, well, nobody judged me for this. I
yeah,
don't have to judge me for this. This is okay. Wait a second. Have I been, are people doing this? You know,
yeah,
I'm living, I'm still existing. Nobody's rejected me because I keep my clean clothes in a clean clothes basket. And taking those little things and then checking, okay, nervous system, look around, no tigers, no tigers came. I didn't get thrown out the tribe. Let's keep doing it. We call it building the wins. You kind of build the little moments of like, oh, this is okay. This is, I could do this. I
yeah.
feel good. I've got energy left. What am I going to do
Yeah,
with
and
it?
putting those strategies in place, in different parts of your life, I suppose that the worry is that if we talk about to get out of burnout, you've got to leave your job. That's it's not realistic and it's not possible for most people. But what is realistic and is possible is to change a little bit, and allow yourself a little bit. And actually, there's shame and kind of heavy stuff that I can drop now. And that makes me feel better because the other way that we deplete our neurotransmitters, if we're talking about burnout in a kind of neuroscience way, is to replay those things in our head. If
Yeah,
we're
big one.
replaying scenarios in our head because we've got shame about it, it's hugely energy draining, and that we just don't need that. So if we can
Yeah,
drop
back to
some of
nervous
that,
systems. It's nervous system trying to protect
yeah,
from it happening again. It's stuck on that loop. How do I fix this? How do I solve this? How do
yeah,
I defend from this?
yeah,
And I think something we probably talk about even more is the compassion. If I can build
yeah,
compassion, that it's okay to have done this, to have been like this, to take my clothes out of clean clothes basket, then we'd stop ourselves going down that road and spending energy we don't have, replaying
yeah,
stuff that will never happen again.
yeah,
Um, yeah, 100% right. And just to clarify, I was not recommending that anybody leave their job tomorrow. I was away feeling burnt out. Just gonna, I'm just gonna embrace poverty. No, absolutely not. As a just to bring you up as an example, that the dramatic shift for you was okay. Someone's got to shift here, prioritize family and and how you feel. I think for you, it wasn't that. Uh, just to talk for you, of course. Um,
yeah,
sorry, talk
sure,
about you. You're right there. It wasn't that you decided to quit your job, it's that the third child came along and gave you time off, and that time off allowed you to reflect and go, hang on a minute, I should shift my priorities here. Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I don't think I would have done it without that kind of thinking time, which again, I suppose is uh, one way in which a couple of weeks off can be useful. Actually, do I need to pause and figure out how to rest, and actually readdress my priorities and look at some strategies and look at where the help is and all of that sort of thing. So it's definitely a good thing to reset in that way, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And not spend that time working out how I can manage. How can I get back to work and tolerate more discomfort?
Yeah.
How can I improve my capacity? Well, science doesn't work that way. Um, with an awful lot of brain training, that's going to cost you more energy than you've got. Yeah,
Mm.
so I think that should be the underlying message is if you're feeling like this, if you're going down that road, the answer is not how do I cope more, how do I cope better? It's what can I change so that I don't have to cope. I can live, thrive, enjoy.
Yeah, I think we talked about reducing the demands, basically, aren't we? How do we figure out how to rest? How do we be all right with how we're, how our life is? How can we soothe ourselves? How can we take some of the pressure off? And some of that is
Yeah.
about, you know, sorting out your reasonable adjustments at work and sorting all that sort of stuff, isn't it? And figuring out what that is, all of that self-discovery stuff, and some of
Just,
it is
just,
about,
just as you bring that up, one of the things that comes up a lot in coaching is there's a thing. So in neurodivergent brains, sometimes there can be a thing that we built such a massive wall around that that's taking so much of our energy that we can't do the other stuff. It's, I've got to finish my access to work application or whatever it is. Or I had one client,
mm,
she had a really messy dining table. That was it, really messy dining table, and just couldn't get on with the rest of her life with this table. And so our entire first coaching, okay, we're working out how we can finally sort out this dining table. And once she managed that, it was like someone lit the fuse on the rocket underneath, and suddenly, like light, and then she tidied up the spare room and did this thing, and I organized the crafting stuff, organized the kid, and started her own business, a couple of businesses, whatever it was. And all it took was taking away the big thing. For some
mm,
reason, whether it was the process of building that win to go, hey, I can do this. I just needed to find the right way to do it, the way to work with me, with my brain, and then you can apply that to all the other stuff. Or whether it was just that thing had become such a big representation of all the other weight and effort. So you just said there about getting the right accommodations at work, but sometimes that can feel so big I don't want to have that conversation, or I really need to have that conversation. And so getting over that sort of hump of being able to do that, um, might set you down a very different path than staring down the barrel of the big thing, whatever your big thing is.
and again, realizing that that doesn't have to be massive. Those can be small adjustments and small changes, and kind of taking some of the fear out. And again, help and support. The themes are the same here, aren't they? Basically,
Yeah.
get support, get help, talk to somebody else about it. Realize it doesn't have to be massive. Yeah,
And
reduce
recognizing
the
you're not alone.
load.
People understand this. People, neurodivergent people
Mm,
in and out of burnout much more often. I think we need to come up with better terms for it. First degree, second degree, third degree burnout feel very different to me, and I think burnout is a kind of a catch-all term for it. Um, so I think, as with anything, the language around university is evolving all the time, and every DSM that comes out, we're hoping for better diagnostic criteria, more things added, separated, different conditions, different processing, all of that. I'm not
mm,
sure we're going to get it in the next one because of um, the political environment, let's say. I don't think we're quite going to get the more conditions that we're hoping for to really differentiate the different kinds of brain operation. But recognizing that there's all these different kinds of it, but essentially it all boils down to the same thing. It's like we talk about anxiety. A lot of the time, it's what is the word to describe this feeling, this state. And so I think recognizing which one of those applies to you and your version of burnout, wherever you are in that pattern, if you're going down that road, and then creating a plan for it, really important.
yeah, really useful. I think the way that the 3 degrees of burnout model helped me was to be able to classify it, and then, you can find solutions then from that. Is it take a day off? Is it do some yoga? Is it, if you're in first degree, or there's suggestions as well for second and third degree, which I think I really like the roadmap. With that, it just yeah, I like a plan. So yeah,
Hmm
it helps me.
I don't like a plan, but I need a plan. That
That's
makes
what you
any
mean.
sense at all. I need to have made it at some stage, whether I follow it or not. The fact that it's there and I've been through that process might help me. Might help me. So different brains, different ADHD, even in a room full of two ADHD people.
Mm,
Great. So, just last thing to say, again, we talked about big stuff here. We talked about burnout. It's often a very emotionally draining, emotionally scary time. So, if the stuff we've talked about today affected you, get in touch with us, ask us. We can signpost, get in touch with Vet Life. They have highly competent people who can support you, help you do things. Go see your GP. The help is out there. You do not have to be alone with these feelings. And hopefully, as we start talking about it more as a theme, as a subject in the industry, we start to recognize that it's not a normal thing. It shouldn't be an every day, every week, once a month I have a little bit of burnout, or once every 6 months, one of my colleagues will have to have a month off to be physically and emotionally broken. That's not a healthy way to exist. So trying to unpick that aspect of the industry to make it less of a normal thing, and it's a last resort thing from your nervous system and your body. So it should be that. It should be awful that someone should have gone out with burnout, and that people need to be looking at the systems and looking at what drove that person to that to get to that state. Excellent. Well, we'll see you all again for the next shiny episode of podcast episode of that project podcast. Um, when we'll talk about, I'm not sure what we'll talk about, something very exciting. I'm pretty sure that we'll choose some stage. If you enjoyed this episode, please send it to a friend, a colleague, a family member, and give us a like or a follow or a subscribe. It costs you nothing, but it could keep us making content to support our tribe. And if you want to work with us, or you want to join the tribe or collect your free resources, just head over to our website, www.thevetproject.co.uk, or send us an email at info@thevetproject.co.uk. And we will look forward to welcoming you on the next episode of The Vet Project podcast.